driving on a street, you see a stop sign, you stop. But that's because we are intentional and purposeful agents. He says, how can inanimate objects follow laws? How can an electron know what to do? And Al-Ghazali says the whole universe exists in the mind of Allah. Everything happens at every second because Allah wills it to be so. There's no other way it can happen. The point I'm trying to get at here is to show that it is only in Western civilization, it's only in the orbit of Christianity that we have this idea of a rational, intelligible, lawful, mathematical universe. And while people often talk about science as opposed to Christianity, if you were to make a list of all the great scientists of the last 300 years, a list that would surely include people like Galileo and Copernicus and Kepler and Leibniz and Pascal and Boyle and Newton, you'll discover that the vast, vast majority of these scientists not only believed in God, but most of them were specifically Christian. So Christianity, in a sense, is the author, not only of many secular values, but also of the science that is today invoked against Christianity. I've spoken a little bit about the legacy of Christianity. I have a lot of material to cover, and my time is so limited, so I need to adopt the motto that King Henry VIII used with one of his wives. He said, I can't keep you too long. So I need to fast forward a little bit. And now I want to talk, if I may, briefly about morality. And I want to try to show that one of the things that's great about God is God ultimately is the moral lawgiver of the universe. The first thing I want to show is that morality is universal. This is very obvious. We all have, if you can. By the way, some people think we get our morality from the Bible, but that's not strictly true. I tried to remind myself when I first read the Ten Commandments, did I read the Ten Commandments and say, oh, let me see, stealing is wrong. Wow, unbelievable. I had absolutely no idea. Killing is wrong. That's another big surprise. No, the truth of it is when I read the Ten Commandments, I already knew them. I already knew. The Ten Commandments is not an inventor of morality, it's a codification of it. Really, morality is the voice within, what Adam Smith calls the impartial spectator inside of us. And all of us have morality. I was speaking on the campus the other day, I said, look, if we were to bring a little dog into this room, and Christopher Hitchens were to get up and start stomping on it, there would be a tremendous wave of revulsion throughout the room. And someone in the audience shouted, well, what if it's a cat? I said, well, then we'd all be equally entertained. But nevertheless, the point is when we acknowledge within us the existence of a moral law, remember that law cannot come from nature. And here's why. Nature is simply a description of what is the case. Nature is a description of reality as it is. Morality is a description of reality as it ought to be. And that's two very different planes of existence. The way things are and the way things ought to be. Nature supplies the former, but it does not supply the latter. So what is the source of morality? Where do we get this little voice of conscience inside ourselves that seems to speak with unimpeachable authority? I mean, we can dispute our conscience. One of my friends says, I'm always wrestling with my conscience and I usually win. But what he's trying to say is my conscience is an acknowledged authority. I might not go along with it, but I don't dispute the unimpeachable power of what it has to say. And my point is, what is its source? I think it makes more sense to think of conscience as transcendent, which is having, you might say, a non-natural or, I would say, supernatural source, than to try to account for it in natural terms, which is simply to confuse the way things are with the way things ought to be. I now want to turn to an argument for the existence of God and for belief in God that I think we would do well to consider, particularly if we are not strong atheists, but you might say sitting on the fence, Or we're Christians, but we're not really sure why we believe what we do, whether it makes sense. I want to conclude with an argument that was raised by the philosopher Pascal. And Pascal makes the point, how am I doing on time? Fine. Pascal makes the point that in life, we have to make decisions even though we don't always have full information. Years ago, when I got engaged to my wife, I said to myself, I don't think I should give her the ring. Why? Because I'm really not sure what life with this girl is going to be like for the next 40 years. I don't know. I'm an agnostic. So what I should do is wait. I should wait for the data to come in. But then I realized even if we date for another year or 5 years, I still won't know.
I believe your time is up, Mr. D'Souza.
I'll pick this up in my rebuttal. Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, brothers and sisters, comrades, friends, for coming. I'd like to exempt myself from the chairman's kind offer of protection. You don't have to demonstrate Southern courtesy to me. I've had enough of it all day. Everyone's been almost stupefyingly polite and gentle with me. So if anyone wants to get rough, they might find that I was ready to play. Second, I want to explain a little riddle in the introduction about Mrs. Watts, my first and in many ways my best teacher when I was 9. She was my nature teacher in a lovely little school in the west of England. She was also my scripture teacher. So she would take us on nature walks, show us the beauties. Then she would do us search the Gospels. And everything would have been fine if this lovely lady hadn't overreached one day and tried to combine her two roles, tried to fuse them. And on a nature walk say to us, look children, how beautiful and green all the vegetation is, the trees, the grass, the leaves, and how good that makes God, doesn't it? How kind also it makes him, as well as how powerful. Green is the color most restful to our eyes. And God could have made it mauve or orange or purple if he'd wanted to, and there'd have been a terrible clash and wouldn't have been so comfortable. And I was 9, and I knew nothing about chlorophyll or photosynthesis or evolution by natural selection or any of these things, but I remember thinking, that's nonsense. The eyes have adapted to the environment, not the environment to the eyes. And from that moment onwards, I've been able to see through all arguments from design, however subtly they're put, or by however clever a person. Now, the subtitle of my book is that religion poisons everything, and some people come up to me and say, or ask me at meetings like this, come on, lighten up, can you be serious? Everything? Do you really mean everything? I mean Italian cooking, fried green tomatoes, chess, tantric sex, whatever. And yes, as a matter of fact, I do mean to say this, because I think that the religious cult, the impulse to worship, in other words, the impulse to displace ourselves onto a higher and unalterable authority, in some way attacks us in our very deepest integrity, and it threatens to take away from us what is our most precious as well as our most worrying and anxiety-making thing, which is our need for responsibility, our need to accept it for ourselves, and our wish to be free, contrasted with our wish, very frequently and very noticeably expressed, our wish to avoid responsibility and our fear of being free. And it's the latter two things,